Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Under the process just completed by the EPA, we are officially terminating this. Actually make factories rock and roll and other things.
Por Gabriel Tepórame o Teporaca, de la región.
The United States economy, including the American auto industry. It claimed new powers over the vehicles we drive.
Under the process just completed by the EPA, we are officially terminating the so-called endangerment finding, a disastrous Obama-era policy that severely damaged the American auto industry and massively drove up prices for American consumers. That's why, effective immediately, we're repealing the ridiculous endangerment finding and terminating all additional green emission standards imposed unnecessarily on vehicle models and engines between 2012 and 2027 and beyond. We canceled the EPA's absurd, just totally absurd, tailpipe emission standards, which was a disaster for automobile manufacturing, and revoked Biden's emissions waiver that would have allowed California to regulate automobiles for the entire nation. And Lee is also working on cleaning up the horrible situation with regard to farm equipment.
The endangerment finding and the regulations that were based on it didn't just regulate emissions. It regulated and targeted the American dream. And now the endangerment finding is hereby eliminated, as well as all greenhouse gas emission standards that followed. The red tape has been cut.
So perhaps no industry has benefited more from our historic deregulation campaign than the U.S. auto industry. We canceled the EPA's absurd, just totally absurd, tailpipe emission standards, which was a disaster for automobile manufacturing, and revoked Biden's emissions waiver that would have allowed California to regulate automobiles for the entire nation, and they're crazy out in California.
The 2009 Obama EPA endangerment finding led to trillions of dollars in regulations that strangled entire sectors of the United States economy, including the American auto industry. It claimed new powers over the vehicles we drive, even though the best reading of the Clean Air Act clearly states otherwise. The Obama and Biden administrations used it to steamroll into existence a left-wing wish list of costly climate policies, electric vehicle mandates, and other requirements that assaulted consumer choice and affordability. And who paid the biggest price? Hardworking families, small businesses, millions of Americans who just want a reliable, affordable car to get to work, take their kids to school, or go to church on Sunday.
For example, under the endangerment finding, they forced the hated start-stop feature onto American consumers, which unnecessarily shuts off a car's engine when you stop at a red light. In other words, the engine goes off. That's great. The endangerment finding was also used to impose the massive and really very expensive electric vehicle mandate, expensive in the sense that nobody wanted it. Everybody was going to be forced to buy an electric car in a very short period of time, even though you can't power the car, because we would have had to spend $5 trillion on power stations. That's all dead, gone, over. These crippling restrictions were a major factor in driving up car prices to unprecedented levels, and the car that you were getting was not nearly as good. In 4 years under the Biden administration, the price of a new and used car rose more than 22%, all to facilitate the Green New Scam without achieving any meaningful impact on the environment but making the car worse.
Tariffs. How do you assure that a car coming into the country is fully built?
So we'll effectively be charging a 25% tariff. Do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. Thanks. So.
So the endangerment finding is a provision under the Clean Air Act that the Supreme Court of the United States told EPA to go and establish. The Clean Air Act says that if there is a pollutant that causes a threat to health or welfare, that EPA must act to combat that pollution. And the Supreme Court in 2007 said, EPA, you need to go and determine whether carbon dioxide poses a danger to health and welfare. And EPA went off and said, yes, in fact, it does. And they did this in draft form under President Bush. What it is a scientific determination. And Mr. Trump is now substituting his expert scientific judgment for that of the world's leading and the country's leading scientists. And he's wrong. So when the clean car rules are revoked, that will allow automakers to make more gas-guzzling vehicles that guzzle and pollute. They will cost you more at the gas pump because they're using more gas. That gas gets burned in the engine, and then the pollutants spew out the tailpipe, and they make smog worse, they make global warming worse, and of course, they cost you more money. So the reality here is that what the president is doing is bad for the climate. It's bad for consumers. It's bad for our health. It's great for the oil industry, which wants to sell you more gas. And it's perfectly fine for the auto companies for now, because they want to sell more gas guzzlers. The problem for them is that the Chinese automakers want to sell more electric vehicles and other clean vehicles, and they're going to eat Detroit's lunch. There will be states, there will be religious organizations, there will be ourselves and other environmental groups, and we will have our day in court. Problem is that Trump has stacked the courts, and any reasonable court would rule that the science is clear, and as the Supreme Court said in 2007, the statute, the Clean Air Act, is overwhelmingly clear that when a pollutant such as carbon dioxide poses a threat to health and welfare, that EPA must act to curb it.
播报新闻是我的日常，必须时刻保持妆容和皮肤的最佳状态。当来到人生中最重要的时刻，也是 KS 逆时奇迹帮助我轻松驾驭，闪闪发光。KS 逆时奇迹活肤露全效精华、精华霜，多达5种 EGF 6大冻龄关键成分，保湿效果让我非常满意，小细纹也不再困扰我。我就是我自己的最佳女主角 ，KS 让我从容自信、光彩动人。我是我人生中的大女主，我的最爱我做主。KS 逆时奇迹系列热卖中，下单请上快点购，透过中天新闻网 App 下单立减50，或输入 CTI 推荐码有额外折扣。